Hey fun fans, welcome back to another episode of FUNalysis. My name is John, an FRC alum, and today we are going over the Finger Lakes Regional Tiebreaker Finals match number 3. In this episode of FUNalysis, we're focusing on common strategies to effectively score during the teleop and endgame sections. Some key things that you'll want to note for this video are exactly what defensive means and on what defensive ends you want to establish field control with your alliance. How does this optimize your scoring time during your alliance shift is going to be the big question that we want to ask.
Before we get to our next segment, we'd like to thank the following. As you're getting ready for the competition season, think AnyMark as your one-stop shop for all your team needs. AnyMark's Launcher in a Box is a configurable solution that so many teams are finding success with for the rebuilt season. Also available at anymark.com, the AMPD AnyMark power distribution board that provides 24 40 amp independently fused output channels for safe, reliable power distribution. That's anymark.com. Kettering University's cutting-edge programs in their experiential co-op model seamlessly blend the professional and academic worlds, offering hands-on, feature-focused learning that empowers students to pursue new ideas and inspires other institutions to follow their lead. Don't just be ahead of the curve, create the curve. Get more information at kettering.edu/first.
Let's go ahead and meet the teams, though, of this match specifically. On the blue alliance, you have alliance number 3, 3181 Pittsford Panthers, 10,922 amped, 1787 the Flying Circuits, and on the red alliance you have Team 48, Team Elite, 3015, Ranger Robotics, 694 Stipulse. Now I'm not going to be covering in depth the autonomous section, so I'll briefly explain that their mirrored orientation is setting them up in the most strategic way for scoring very high. You may want to also recognize that in the beginning their score is very close, but they do it in a few different ways. Blue 3181 specifically is going to disrupt the natural placement of fuel in the middle of the field, while red chooses to score first and then come pick up extra fuel from the midsection. We're not going to emphasize what autonomous routine will work the best, but you may want to note that whoever has the lower score after autonomous will have that first aligned shift in teleop. There are 6 periods that we'll focus on. Whoever has a lower score will have the first consecutive periods 1 and 2 opportunity to score. Let's jump right into this match. As we kind of start things off, you'll notice what I just mentioned. You'll have a team 48 predominantly score in the back, while you'll have team 3181 moving to that midsection to score. Obviously 1787 was scoring the beginning, then came to the midsection, then came back to their alliance on the blue side. And after autonomous, it's 8986 in favor of blue, which means red is going to get that first double aligned shift. Of course, blue has that first shift as well right now, but what I mean is this section right here. Another 25 seconds for red to score. Let's focus on red for a little bit here. Red has control over a lot more fuel, but they're going to send one team, Team 48, to that middle patch just to disrupt blue. That's one form of defense, right? You can create a blockade that's slowing the other alliance down from going back to their zone and scoring during their section. But notice what the other 2 robots on red are doing in this time. They're going to the midsection. They're going to the blue far side and collecting as much fuel and bringing that to the back end as possible. They're setting themselves up in a way so that when it's their turn to score during period 4, they're not going to need to travel to the midsection to collect as much fuel, right? They're just going to start firing all the way from the back as much as they possibly can. What's advantageous about this is that you have one robot primarily on defense in order to control the midsection. That midsection is very important because you want to slow down the other team from taking your fuel, something that's sure there's a high abundance of in this game, but that's what matters, right? The more you have, the more you're able to use and the more you're able to score. So red stockading up these in the back means something. Let's take a pause here real quick. I think it's important to also note exactly what blue is doing during this time as well. I'd like to point out that in order to make it fair, blue will have a consecutive line shift, like scoring period as well, and that's periods 5 and 6, which means throughout the first 4 periods, they want to be able to stock up, especially in the 4th period where it's red's turn to score. They want to stock up as much fuel as they can in that blue end zone. They want to do this because they're not focused on collecting fuel during the 5th and 6th period. Because of this, their strategy, it naturally leans towards cycling all 3 robots during the 4th, during the 2nd line shifts, to sweep as many fuel cells as they can to that blue aligned side. It seems in a way that playing the catch-up game is not always favorable, but the strategy that you're executing in order to play that catch-up game has to be in a way that you have as much fuel cells at your disposal as possible. This will set you up for the best chance of success, especially when you have a game that's going to be very high scoring and you know what your other team kind of plays. Now let's rewind just a little bit so we can focus on the blue alliance here. You'll want to note that the blue alliance kind of plays a very similar strategy to red as well. They primarily have 2 offensive, 1 defense kind of strategy, right? The defense bot, quote unquote, is going to be 10,922 team amped, but their defense looks a little bit different. So let's not worry about this back end. You'll know that 3181 and 1787 are going to be your 2 primary scorers, but let's focus on what team 10,922 is going to be doing during this period, right? They're out here. They're creating that block height. They're creating a lot of disruption, a lot of messiness in the middle of the field. And see what they just did. They just pushed a lot of fuel cells back to their zone as well. It contributes in a way that optimizes the blue lines to stay back, to score in the end, and for them to come and also have a disruptive presence in the middle of the field. This is what I mean by field control. Now, obviously, during this time, now it's Blue Alliance's turn, right? Team Amped is going to actually go hop on the Red Alliance side because they believe that this will decrease the traffic in the middle of the field, allowing the other 2 teammates, Team 1787 and 3181, to collect as much fuel cells as they can from Red's outtake, right? It's important to recognize this because this kind of strategy minimizes the traffic you have together in one region and distributes your control and your presence in the midsection and possibly even your opposing alliance's section at the risk of penalty points, at the risk of technical fouls. I think that's something that we should always consider, is the risk of playing defense. Now, of course, in the past 45 seconds, you'll note that Team 48 is also found in a dead zone right here. Here's the thing about playing the catch-up game. When you have the advantage in score, your mindset shifts in the very last section in zone 6, where now both teams are about to get ready for that final scoring period where everybody's going to score as much as they can. Blue has some advantage because it's their turn for their line shift, and they naturally already have stored up a large amount of fuel cells in their zone. So what does that mean for Red, especially since they also have Team Elite down in the midsection? Well, they have their own little stock of fuel in the back, and they're just going to try to do everything they can to maintain a lead. Blue, knowing that their disruption is severely minimized in their favor, however, because they have 2 robots in the back with no disruptions at all, they can send Team Amped to the Red Alliance side to create that defensive disruption that affects how the Reds' offense is going to be played. And you'll see that the score at the end is actually going to be very, very close, right? 333, 339. But it doesn't end there. And this is what I mean by understanding how you should play defense, how you should establish your field presence and your field control. Because at the end of the day, Blue takes home the blue banner at this regional. By 1 point, Blue wins this match. And it came down, really, it did come down to the penalty points. You'll remember that Red coming out of the game before tallying up penalty had 339 while Blue had 333, right? The penalty points just really played that much of a difference to Blue over the edge. It's important to recognize this because when we talk about playing defense, especially in the opposing alliance's side, it gets tricky. It gets tricky to be able to play defense on a blind side that you can't see through, right? Your driver vision might not allow you to do so. But it can be very, very effective when you have a strategy, common strategy of 2 offense, 1 defense robot that enables you to start disrupting the offensive end of the opposing team in your favor, knowing that you're safe to do so, having 2 offensive powerhouses. Both teams did an outstanding job at this regional, showcasing a practically mirrored gameplay of each other. And you'll see this in a lot of other matches too, such as what happened in the US West in this past week too, Silicon Valley, Ventura County. And you'll notice the same thing where we capitalize on scoring instead of, let's just say, climbing, because in these matches, the score is going to be very high compared to having another difference in climb points, right? Climb obviously matters a lot. In qualifications, you want to be able to get ranking points. You want to have good position for alliance selection. But I think this is a very good strategy that has worked up to week 2 so far, that a lot of teams are recognizing, just bombarding that score, driving a scoring deficit, and making sure that you will maintain a lead if you have a lead, or play the best catch-up game that you can during that match. If you guys have seen any other strategies that have worked so far, please feel free to let us know in the comments below. We can't wait to review them as well. As for now, if you liked the video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't, and we will catch you guys in all the events happening down the road up to champs. That's all for this episode of FUNalysis, and good luck to all the competing teams.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to stay up to date on future fun videos. Kettering University's cutting-edge programs and their experiential co-op model seamlessly blend the professional and academic worlds, offering hands-on, future-focused learning that empowers students to pursue new ideas and inspires other institutions to follow their lead. Don't just be ahead of the curve, create the curve. Get more information at kettering.edu/first. As you're getting ready for the competition season, think AndyMark as your one-stop shop for all your team needs. AndyMark's Launcher in a Box is a configurable solution that so many teams are finding success with for the rebuilt season. Also available at AndyMark.com, the AMPD AndyMark power distribution board that provides 24 40 amp independently fused output channels for safe, reliable power distribution. That's AndyMark.com.